Jesus was an example of serenity and emotional balance, even amid the greatest pressures and challenges a human being can face. We know that anxiety is an affliction that affects millions of people, and it can paralyze us, distance us from God, and make us lose our peace. However, by looking at the life of Jesus, we find powerful lessons on how to deal with anxiety. Throughout his journey, Jesus demonstrated attitudes and techniques that can help us control our emotions, remain calm in stressful moments, and connect more deeply with God. Today, I want to share with you 3 techniques that Jesus used to master anxiety, according to the Bible. Technique 1. Jesus withdrew to the mountain after major events and intense emotional moments. The first technique we can learn from Jesus is the importance of taking time to be alone, to reflect, calm the mind, and reorganize thoughts. In various moments in the Bible, we see that after events that demanded much of his emotions and energy, Jesus withdrew to isolated places, often mountains or desert areas, where he could be alone with God. A clear example of this is in Matthew 14:13. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. This act of Jesus withdrawing was not a gesture of weakness or escape. On the contrary, it was an intentional attitude to seek rest and connection with the Father. He knew that to keep his mind calm and his emotions balanced, he needed moments of solitude, away from the pressures and expectations of others. In the same way, we also need to learn to step away from the chaos of daily life and set aside moments of silence and reflection. Often, we are so involved in our routines and concerns that we forget to take care of our mental and spiritual health. Anxiety tends to increase when we are overwhelmed, and time alone can help restore mental and emotional clarity. Have you been taking time to be alone with God? Just as Jesus withdrew to the mountains, you also need to find a moment during the week to disconnect from external pressures and focus on your spiritual connection. This time is essential to calm the mind, reflect on what is causing anxiety, and seek the peace that comes from the Lord. Even Jesus, who was perfect, demonstrated the importance of this time of solitude. So if he needed it, how much more do we? Technique 2. Jesus practiced gratitude daily in great and small things. The second technique that Jesus teaches us is the constant practice of gratitude. In various moments of his ministry, Jesus expressed gratitude to God, both in grand occasions and in the simplest ones. One of the most remarkable examples is in John 11:41, during the resurrection of Lazarus. Before calling Lazarus out of the tomb, Jesus prayed, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." Even knowing that the miracle was about to happen, Jesus expressed gratitude. Gratitude was a constant practice in his life. In addition to this example, we see Jesus expressing gratitude in other situations, such as the multiplication of the loaves and fishes, John 6:11, when he gave thanks before feeding the crowd, and at the Last Supper, Luke 22:19, when he thanked the Father before breaking the bread. Gratitude was a central attitude in Jesus' life, and he shows us that being grateful for both small and great things is a powerful way to combat anxiety. When we practice gratitude, our focus shifts. Instead of concentrating on difficulties, worries, and problems we face, we begin to see the blessings that God has already given us. Anxiety often arises when we focus on what's lacking, what went wrong, or what could go wrong. But when we practice gratitude, we place our minds in a state of acknowledgement for the good things we have, and this helps us find peace and joy even in difficult situations. Gratitude diffuses complaints. Have you been practicing gratitude daily? The Bible teaches us in 1 Thessalonians 5:18 that we should give thanks in all circumstances. This means that gratitude should not be occasional, but a lifestyle. Start thanking God for the small things, like the air you breathe, the health you have, the people around you. When you practice gratitude, even amid challenges, your mind becomes calmer and more open to receiving God's solutions and direction. Technique 3. Jesus lived intensely in the present, focusing on today. The third technique that Jesus teaches us is the power of living in the present. Jesus didn't worry about the future, nor did he dwell on the past. He was always fully present in the moment he was living. In Matthew 6:34, Jesus gives us a fundamental teaching about anxiety. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. This passage is a key to dealing with anxiety. Often our minds are so caught up in the future, in what could go wrong, in uncertainties, in worries about what is to come, that we forget to live in the present. And with that, anxiety grows. Jesus teaches us to focus on the now, to live one day at a time, to trust that God takes care of us and that He will give us the strength needed to face tomorrow's challenges when they come. Living in the present is an act of faith. It's believing that God is in control and that He holds the future in His hands. We cannot control what will happen tomorrow, but we can control what we do today, and it is in today that we can find the peace and strength we need to deal with any situation. When we live intensely in the present, we let go of unnecessary worries and find more serenity. Have you been living in the present, or are you constantly anxious about the future? Jesus teaches us that we must trust God for tomorrow, because what truly matters is what we are doing today. When we focus on the present, our minds are freed from worries that are often unnecessary and sink us into anxiety. Remember that God is taking care of every detail of your future, and your role is to live the now with faith and trust. Conclusion. Anxiety is an affliction that affects many people, but Jesus showed us through His actions and teachings how we can deal with this feeling. He taught us the importance of taking moments of solitude to reorganize the mind and recharge the spirit, the constant practice of gratitude as a way to combat worries, and living intensely in the present without being consumed by concerns about the future. Jesus, the Son of God, lived a life of balance and serenity and gave us the example of how we can face life's pressures and anxieties. If Jesus, amid all the challenges and persecutions He faced, managed to maintain peace, we can too, if we follow His techniques and teachings. We need to withdraw to places of peace, practice gratitude, and fully trust God for tomorrow, knowing that He cares for us. Today, you have the opportunity to start applying these techniques in your life. Take a moment of solitude, give thanks for the small and great blessings, and live the present with faith and trust in God's care. As it is written in Philippians 4:6-7, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." The peace that Jesus experienced is available to you today. The secret is to learn from the Master and apply His techniques in your own life. May you find the peace of Christ and live free from anxiety, fully trusting in God's love and care for every detail of your life.